and then Leinster have got 4. So you've got Ross, Harry, Frawley, and Sam. And I just think that's one too many, and maybe two too many, but one too many at least, in terms of being able to really let them go. And not just, I'm not just talking about Sam here, but even for Ross or Harry or Frawley, none of them are really going to get that rhythm and experience of playing week in, week out that they need. I think they need, and even Ross needs it. I think Ross needs it as well, because time in the saddle and getting Leinster through big games is important. So that's look at Leinster. It's Leinster's decision because they have the 4 of them under contract. But I would be either in favour of, I have no issue with Sam going on loan to Connacht for a year if he was going to play a lot down there, which I think he would, or stay in Leinster and play a lot. But obviously if Sam plays a lot, then one of the others is going to not have as much game time as they need. So it's easy for me as a pundit to call it Leinster's prerogatives to keep the 4 of them. But I would say, from an Irish rugby point of view, probably better if one goes temporarily to Connacht, just because of the injury to JJ. Just opens up an opportunity. And I think if David Humphries does one thing this summer, it's potentially that, to actually get one of those 10s to go to Connacht for a year. And let's see how good they are. Obviously we know how good Ross is. We all think Frawley could be really good at 10, I think. Well, I certainly feel when I see him play, I go, I'd like to see more of that. And then obviously Harry and Sam are a little bit more unproven, both very talented. So I'm not fussed about who leaves, who leaves, but I just think this time next year we'll be still wondering about one of them at least, and maybe 2 of them if they all stay in the same place. What do you think?
Well, the issue mainly is that they all want to play for Leinster, obviously. That's great for Leinster, of course, but they want to stay and fight for their minutes. I agree. It's like having 10 options. That many 10 options is not ideal. It's great for your squad. It's great if you get a couple of injuries, but for Irish rugby, when we already have such a condensed system with only 4 teams, that's not ideal. Like, in France, in England, there's more clubs, so younger 10s have a wider variety of options, and that's just the reality of it. It's a good thing as well, because you have to be so good to get into even a provincial team in Ireland, but at times you get this kind of logjam, and I totally agree. It's ideal if one of them goes, even for a season. The latest I heard is that it is going to be that job of convincing someone to go, and it might be Harry Byrne that they're trying to convince to go now. Because I think Sam Prendergast has if he stays, he has I think, a good chance of accelerating quite quickly and rapidly with Leinster. Ross Byrne is their number 1 out half. I can't even imagine him going, and he's had a chance to go before and wasn't interested. And Frawley, he's a player you just don't want to miss in your squad, because obviously he wants to play out half and he's a great half, but he can do so much else in your squad. I think he's a great 12. He's a fine fullback as well, and letting a player like that go is really tricky. So the more I think about it, the more I think, Harry Byrne actually might be a good fit, kind of leading the team in Connacht, getting that rhythm in his game that hasn't really been possible for his career yet, due to injuries, due to other guys coming back in and playing 10. So it's a big one for Humphries to get on top of. You're straight into the job and you're straight into something like this, which
just to be clear, I don't think Sam should necessarily go, but I think that one of them should go, right? And I think the difference, Sam, from what I remember of him, is he's like unbelievably driven, and he wants to play for Leinster and Ireland, right? But also he wants to play every week. He's a professional rugby player who wants to play. So, like, I would say he would be willing to go to Connacht for a year on loan to prove that he deserves more game time in Leinster. Or he's obviously willing to stay if he's going to get more game time. I don't think it's just unfortunate. Like, what's happened here is Leinster lost the Champions Cup final, right? And JJ Hanrahan got injured, right, for a year. So there's 2 things that happened. So there is question marks around Leinster's ability to get over the line in Champions Cup finals, whatever, right? And there's question marks around their long-term 10. There has to be, right? Because they haven't been getting over the line. So, and it's a key position. So the challenge is how do you manage that? Do you manage that by making the decision now that you're going to actually have a narrower selection pool. And don't forget they've got Charlie Tector as well. So it's not 4, it's actually 4.5. If you in 5 really, but like in terms of guys who have been getting game time, it's 4. And you just do the same thing next year, and everyone gets a few minutes. Look, Leinster will argue, in fairness, they're entitled to make this argument, that they have given Sam 16 games in 2 years, right? The counter argument is he started 6, one which was the other night, which is pretty much a dead rubber, really. But he started 6. And maybe that's enough. But so I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I look at Marcus Smith, I look at Thomas Ramos, I look at Finn Smith, I look at lots of other players in other positions in France, particularly in positions that aren't like, it's very hard to throw a 20-year-old, 21-year-old tie a prop in. But at 10, you don't actually have to be as athletic or as well developed physically to play. I just think it's very hard for them. And Leinster have done an unbelievable job of keeping so many players happy over the last 10 years. You know, Ed Byrne, Ross Maloney, Max Deegan, Scott Penny, Luke McGrath, etc. They've all been really happy to stay. And that's testament to Leinster and their ability to manage them. It's testament to their loyalty to the province. But it hasn't helped necessarily. It hasn't led to Leinster winning as many trophies as I think they deserve to win, in terms of what the spend is and what the production line is. So you have to ask the question: maybe is it better just to have one less to give more to the tree?
The only thing I would say is that compared to Marcus Smith, and obviously those guys are further ahead or get chances earlier, but the Irish system is so different, isn't it? And like, I think in the end, the Irish system, the really good ones get through as really good players. Like Jack Crowley, I think, is a good example. He had to be patient because he wasn't getting picked. I'd say it was extremely frustrating, but he's got through now and he's going to be, it looks like a really good international out half. And I mean, Prendergast, compared to within the Irish system, he probably has played more than his peers, guys of the same kind of Ireland under-20s or academy year. He's probably actually played more minutes than lots of those guys. But yeah, you do want to play as much senior rugby as early as you possibly can to accelerate that development and learn those lessons as quickly as possible.